The release of thousands of documents that were part of the investigation into the assassination of President Kennedy have kept the internet stimulated for the past few days. The release was overwhelming for people like myself who expected a nothing burger from the release. However, there are at least a few documents that I found illuminating. First, we should start with a mistress of former President Johnson, Madeleine Brown, who was very vocal about her relationship with LBJ that stretched as far back as his days as a congressman.
Lyndon called me from the Texas hotel, and he was still irate. I said, Lyndon, about last night, and he went to cursing. He used foul language all the time, and he said, those Kennedys, he repeated, they will never embarrass me again. That's no threat, that's a promise. And I'd like the entire world to know how I personally feel is the fact Lyndon Johnson knew about the assassination and was a part of it.
This would not be the first time I have heard somebody make this claim, and in another interview that I can't find at the moment, Madeleine Brown told LBJ that everyone in Dallas was convinced that he was behind it. Apparently, JFK and LBJ did not have a friendly relationship. At least one document seems to indicate that the KGB believed that Johnson was responsible for the assassination of JFK. Reading directly from it, our source added that in the instructions from Moscow, it was indicated that now the KGB was in possession of data purporting to indicate President Johnson was responsible for the assassination of the late President John F. Kennedy. KGB headquarters indicated that in view of this information, it was necessary for the Soviet government to know the existing personal relationship between President Johnson and the Kennedy family, particularly that between President Johnson and Robert and Ted Kennedy. Although it doesn't relate directly to the assassination of President JFK, there was a document released that seems to indicate that President Johnson was at one point a member of the Ku Klux Klan. In another document that was released, Potito said the Surgeon General's report on the assassination stated the first bullet entered the president's throat below the Adam's apple, clearly showing that two persons were involved, the first shot being fired from the bridge across the parkway in front of the car. To further substantiate this, Potito said there was a bullet hole in the windshield of the president's car. And before I end this video, and by the way, there is a ton of data in those documents that were released, so I very likely will do an additional video if I come up with anything else that I find interesting. But this one last thing that I came across right before doing this video caught my attention. I do consider it noteworthy, however, that on November 30th, 1973, the Washington Star-News reported that the CIA employed some 40 journalists who doubled as undercover contacts. Really makes you wonder how many journalists on national television are actually journalists and not CIA representatives.